So if each member of the panel would identify him or herself and state your location.
Good morning, I'm Angela Rutherford, and I'm in Oxford, Mississippi at the University of Mississippi.
Good morning, I'm Kelly Butler. I'm based in Jackson, Mississippi.
Good morning, I'm Kristen Wynn. I am located in Brandon, Mississippi.
Okay, since we have 4 members present, we have a quorum, so we will move forward with our meeting. Everyone should have received a copy of the agenda. When we posted notice of our meeting, we had 2 vendors who had indicated an interest, or either a district had indicated an interest for them to be considered as an addition to the current list of universal screeners. One of those vendors withdrew from being considered, so today we will only have 1 vendor presentation. A district has completed an application, which you should have a copy of, to request that we consider adding to our universal screener list. So you should have also received a checklist that we use for universal screeners. So at this time, I would like to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So now I am going to recognize Melissa Beck to introduce our vendor who will be presenting to us this morning.
Good morning, panel. I would like to introduce the ClassWorks team to you this morning. I will give Melissa Sinanu a couple of minutes to introduce herself and the rest of the ClassWorks team that is with her today.
Thanks, Melissa. This is much better technically, actually, than our last presentation, I think. We were much delayed last time. With me, I have Joanne Waltman, and we're going to be presenting the ClassWorks Universal Screener. Joanne, do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. My name is Joanne Waltman. I'm the curriculum director at ClassWorks, and I'm excited to see you all again. Great.
Yes, we're very excited to present. And I guess that's why our time went from 10 minutes to 20 minutes then. I don't think that we'll need to take the full 20 minutes, although I am a little anxious sharing my screen, again, like I said, in Microsoft Teams Classic, but we're going to get past that anxiety. So should I just get started? Is that right, ladies? Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Am I sharing? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yes, today we're going to talk a little bit about the ClassWorks K3 Universal Screener. So ClassWorks, are you guys familiar with the ClassWorks platform? Has anyone already heard of it?
Many years ago when I was a principal.
Okay, so a long time ago. So ClassWorks is a pretty comprehensive platform. It does have screening, it has progress monitoring, and then separately it has individualized learning plans, and it has some PBIS SEL supports, and then it has data. Now today what we'd be talking about really is only the universal screening, and then accompanying with that, if people were to adopt the K3 screener, would also be the progress monitoring would come with that. Anything else, if a district were to purchase separately, would be the individualized learning pass and these other components. So what we'll be focusing on today would just be the screener and then a little bit about the progress monitoring. So a little bit about the universal screener. It is already on the National Center on Intensive Intervention tools chart, actually both the reading and the math universal screener grades all the way through the high school, actually. It is a vertically scaled test, which means it is fixed form, but it has the items built in all the way through, so it can identify students both below and above grade level, but it does only take a single class period. It is nationally normed. It does offer those percentile rankings, and it does have predictive validity for your high stakes test, which would only really be applicable for your third graders, right? If we're looking at a K3 screener. It is already state approved in Georgia and South Carolina. We are primarily a Southeastern company for those of you that are already familiar with ClassWorks. Those are the only other 2 states where we have applied for approval. It does offer dyslexia and early literacy indicators, and I'll show you a little bit more about that. It does give everybody grade level equivalencies for teachers after students complete that, and it takes about 30 minutes on average to complete. It does bookmark though for students. Now, this is the teacher's view after they've completed it. So what you see here is really good information right away. So we can see from my class, everybody who's in the red has fallen into that bottom 10th percentile. Everyone in the yellow is in the bottom 25th. In the green, they're in the 25th to 40th. And in the purple, they're above the 40th. So right away, I have at a glance what NCII recommends for my potential tiers for my students. So I can see that immediately after my students have completed this universal screener. So this is great for my early intervention placements. This is great for any MTSS I'm doing. And then this is great for determining if, as I see my start and stop, who I might want to do progress monitoring with. Now, what this also does when I pair this with my universal screener is it's going to recommend exactly which level I want to be doing my progress monitoring. So I know not only who needs to be progress monitored, but I know right away at which level I need to be progress monitoring. So I pair that with which level I'm going to be doing my interventions. So this is some of the data that I have at a glance in the platform when I'm doing my universal screening. So I can see that same data I saw at the top. I can see the suggested tiers for interventions. I see the overall scaled score. I see that percentile rank, the grade level equivalency, and I then again see that broken out by domain. And then as we move down, I get some great present level data. And if you scroll down further, and I'll show you this in the platform in a second, you're also going to see great information about what the students are in fact ready to learn. So I have a lot of good information about what's coming up next for that student. So then we also include, like I mentioned, that dyslexia indicator. We're not a diagnosis of dyslexia, of course, but we will recommend, based on how you've scored on that screener, if we recommend additional testing for dyslexia. And that's based on your response to specific items. If you scored in the bottom 25th percentile on specific items that we've indicated, we're going to recommend that you get tested for dyslexia. And we also, in our reporting, we are going to suggest if you have how you perform in early literacy indicators. And then we're going to have suggestions if you are at risk at things that the teacher can do, or the teacher might talk to the parent about some things that they can do to strengthen those specific areas. And I can show you the report that breaks out all of those specific areas. And we do this at K3. And then we have specific individualized reading interventions. ClassWorks intervention not only is our K3 reading intervention on the National Center of Intensive Intervention tools chart, we just got added to that tools chart in March of this year. We're also a Mississippi approved reading intervention as well. We take the results of that screener and we automatically assign instruction to every single student based on the results of that screener. And we put them in our evidence-based learning progression. And that's designed to maximize growth because we're only going to assign the student where they have areas of weakness. And then if the teacher says, well, I don't want them working in that progression because I want them working on exactly what I see they need to work on, they can take the information from that report and they can assign them some specific assignments that we have for them to work on. Now, everything that you saw in ClassWorks up until now is an online test, multiple choice. The only exception to that is the fluency passages, right? If we're going to measure for fluency, we do that right now offline. We do have in the works doing this online, but right now this is done offline for the students. And then just so you know, ClassWorks works. Like I said, we are on the NCII tools chart, but we really do show great efficacy when you work in ClassWorks. So now I do want to take a minute to show you the report that you get. So this is one of the reports. This is a great report to send home or share with parents. Again, we see that great information about what their potential tier is, the overall score, the percentile rank, some information broken out by domain, that dyslexia indicator, and then those early literacy indicators. Again, we're talking about the science of reading. I know Mississippi, of course, is cutting edge about that. You can see some really good information broken out here that you can send home. Now, let me just show you a little bit. Oh, look at us. I got logged out. I think I'm going to show you Jane Goodall. So this is what that teacher sees about the student. She has a lot of really good information. You can see that present level information, but then she can also see everything that Jane is ready to learn based on that screener information. And then I want to show you, I'm actually going to show you a different student who has a little bit more information, who might be doing some progress monitoring. So we can see what we've turned on as far as progress monitoring, because if you do buy the screener, you automatically get that weekly progress monitoring that's so great both for your MTSS processes, but also when students are in special education to monitor their growth on their IEPs. So you really have both sides of that coin covered automatically if you do adopt that K3 screener as well. So you have that automatic progress monitoring that accompanies that. And I want to show you how the progress monitoring works. She already has one started. Let me start one for another student. So you'd hit start, and then you could pick the domain that you wanted. You'd pick the level, you'd pick moderate or aggressive rate of improvement, and then you would just hit start for that. And then you would have a great report that you could send home to show how they're responding to their intervention or their specially designed instruction. You would make notes, and you could see how that student is responding to every single item every single week. So it's really that one step more granular than that 3 times a year screening. It really pairs with that screening with that one layer more granular. Now I want to show you, if you don't mind, because I'm going to steal that other vendor's time. I'm going to show you what it looks like for the student. Are there any questions? Have I gone too fast? I talk too fast, I know.
Say more about moderate versus aggressive.
Sure, that's something that's absolutely flexible. The teacher can be changing that as they go. Typically, right, if we're in our MTSS process, we're going to decide ahead of time, are we going to set a moderate or aggressive rate of improvement for that student? But we can modify that throughout our 9-week process as we work with the student and decide to up that and just determine what we want that to be. And it'll just move that chart up for us. It'll move our scale up for us as we're doing it. It'll just move up our goal for the student. It'll just change the graph.
And does it then influence what you're doing and at the frequency with which you're doing it?
It doesn't at all. It doesn't impact at all the intervention. It doesn't impact at all how often you're doing the progress monitoring. All it does is say, my goal for the student is now that they hit a higher, the graph is going to have higher results. That it's only impacting your expectation for the student. That's all it's impacting.
Okay, thank you.
If that makes sense, yeah. So the screener is available in both English and Spanish, as you can see here. One thing with the student interface, for someone who is familiar with ClassWorks before, you can see how different the student interface is now. The student can see one of the things that we felt was really important when we thought about the student experience is that they have visibility into their own learning and their own scoring. So you can see they can see all of their scores on the screener. They can see their results not only overall, but they can see their results at the domain level as well. They can see where they're approaching grade level equivalency, where they're at grade level equivalency, and then what their specific results were as well. And they can do that same thing if they have progress monitoring. I don't think Jane has progress monitoring. I know Grace does though. I think I'll show you Grace. Grace is a 4th grader, so I didn't want to show her as an example, but but Grace is my go-to usually. And so I have to. So again, we want students to have a lot of visibility into what they're doing as far as their progress monitoring, which again is that one layer deeper as far as their learning, so they can also see how they're doing. This has been really an enormous shift as far as what we're seeing in students taking responsibility for their progress monitoring. I think, especially for those of us, when we think about progress monitoring students in years past and what they think about that weekly probe that they have to do, it's so hard to connect it reliably to outcomes. But when they see it every time they log in and they see it graphed, it makes such a difference to go, oh, I see I see that graph going up or down. And when they see that, how hard they try, it makes a huge difference. So back to that, the graph, all it does, moderate or aggressive, it makes it either go like this or go like this. And it just shows what your expectations are. It doesn't make any other change on the report at all. It just shows, have I modified my expectations for that student? And then again, depending on if the school decides to add on the learning path or the instruction, they're gonna have students work in that instruction, and that would be the add-on purchase was the learning path, where they would either have teacher assigned activities or they would have the learning path that would be automatically influenced by that screener. And that's the piece that would come below that, as opposed to the screener and progress monitoring that would be automatically come with anybody that chose to adopt this if we do in fact get the approval. And then I'll show you, I'll show you a little bit about, I want to show you those assignments based on the early literacy too. So then this is where the teacher can say, based on that report, I know that even though the student has been assigned all these things based on exactly what the screener said they need to work on, I want them to work on these very specific things, right, based on what that report said. So I'm going to make this decision and I'm going to assign Jared these exact things that I want him to work on. Then he can go back to that learning progression. So she can make very, very targeted decisions for what she wants her students to work on based on the results of that screener, instead of relying on the learning progression to make those decisions for her. Although she can also customize that learning progression as well. So, and again, we looked at what the report said, right? It had those pieces. These mirror exactly what's available here as far as those assignments. So we give her action that she can take based on what that report says. So she can really take that data and make it actionable for herself. So
I have a question. So with those early literacy pieces there that she can assign, all of those are digital, right? They're not teacher facing.
Yes.
Okay.
We do have small group assignments that are all printable components as well. So we have these. So these are pieces that can be done either small group, just passages that she can do that have then text dependent questions that can also be printed also, so students can do these just as paper and pencil as well. So we have that also. But that's small group instruction that's available as well for teachers to do. But overwhelmingly, the bulk of what ClassWorks is absolutely students independently working on the computer. But these are available, all these Lexile leveled passages, and actually teachers, if they buy the instruction, have this available. It's grades 1 through 8, and they have all this available. All these Lexile leveled passages are available. And teachers actually love these for small group instruction. They love these also for high stakes test prep, as you can imagine, because they are heavy duty passages with good text dependent questions, and all of them end with a writing prompt. But that's kind of off topic, but these are great too. So, yeah. figure out if I can figure out how to stop sharing my screen.
Can I say a little more about the progress monitoring piece, the moderate versus aggressive?
Yeah.
Okay, so progress monitoring, it's all about monitoring how well the intervention that you put in place for that student is meeting their needs. So when we look at moderate versus aggressive, a teacher can start it out at a moderate rate. They're hopefully making narrative notes. Progress monitoring tool allows teachers to make narrative notes.
It does.
Including noting if they've made an adjustment to what they're doing.
Right.
And
phase change.
So when you switch it from moderate to aggressive, really what you're doing is you're saying, I want this student to go from getting 3 more points every week to getting 6 more points every week, just as an example. So you're really documenting how well your intervention is meeting that student's needs so that you can continue to fine tune it. I just wanted to add that piece.
Absolutely. And we can, so what we did was we let it flexible so they can move it. We don't tie it to anything, but you can absolutely make the notes throughout as you do that. But we made it independent from anything happening inside the product. That was kind of our goal. We didn't tie it to what they're doing. We made it the teachers free to make all those notes. We didn't have anything automatically be triggered inside the product. We felt like that wasn't Classworks' job to do that. That was the teacher saying, I'm going to decide that and I'm going to make those notes, right? Because that is absolutely what that would be. And we're actually adding we're adding phase change, so the teacher will actually have a dotted line on that graph showing I've made a change to the intervention and I'm documenting what that change is to the intervention, which is kind of which is also what you're talking about, but it's different than moderate and aggressive. You'll see that coming in the product in September. The progress monitoring is kind of a nice bonus to the screening, I think.
So I have a quick question. We do have the documents, and I know there's a link to the predictive validity study, but in your presentation, you mentioned that there is predictive validity to high stakes assessment. Is there a predictive validity study specific to Mississippi's 3rd grade ELA assessment?
Yeah, to the MAP. Yes, there is. MAAP, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I have one more question. You mentioned dyslexia indicators within the system, and you showed us the reporting that, if a student were to score at a particular percentile rank, then on the report, it said further dyslexia testing.
Right.
Can you talk about what indicators within the system flag for that particular verbiage on a report?
Yeah, so actually I'm going to let Joanne answer that, because what we did was we looked at a specific subset of items on each test that fit a certain criteria and said, if you fell into the bottom 25th percentile of students on those specific items, then you should be tested additionally for dyslexia. But that's about as deep as I can go on that. So, Joanne?
Okay, so great question. What we did is we went back to the International Dyslexia Association and their recommended strands to be aware of and to monitor. So specifically, we're looking at phonemic awareness. We are looking at segmentation, manipulation tasks, and phonological memory. When we're looking at the phonics strand, we're looking at letter naming fluency, letter sound association, onset and rhyme, blending. We've got a couple more, word level decoding. It's both identifying what a word is and then being able to recognize it fluently. So that word recognition fluency, and then oral language, and specifically classifying words, finding words that have the same traits, so to speak, and then reading comprehension. So the basic retelling piece, can I summarize? Do I know what this text was about? And then can I answer basic text-dependent questions.
And just for clarification, all of those indicators that you just named are still done, are computerized, are still done with the teacher, with the student on the computer and not teacher facing. Is that correct?
The items are all on the universal screener. They are all done electronically. Yes.
Okay.
They're all multiple choice. I mean, it's one point of data, which is why we don't diagnose dyslexia. We just notice whether or not a student scored very low, so below the 25th percentile. And we flag that there might be, you know, we have evidence, we have some data that indicates there could be a need for further evaluation. We don't do anything further than that.
Okay, I have one more question. So with the fluency passages that you mentioned that were the ones that were teacher facing that could be administered, are there approximated norms? Are these are those passages normed? And what are you using to norm them?
Joanne, I'm going to let you answer that as well based on.
Okay, so this is a brand new set of passages. The passage texts have been equated. We don't have student data on them yet. Just gonna be honest with you there because they're new, but they have been equated, and we used well, Dibbles did an amazing job when they equated all of their passages and continue to measure and refine how they're looking at it. So with these passages, we followed their lead and looked at semantic, syntactic, and decoding indicators. So the passages all have relatively within, I think, I'm not all that great with statistics. I'm really good with curriculum, but they're within 1 point or 1.5 when it comes to word length, sentence length, number of syllables in each word, and something else.
But it's the 50th percent, but Joanne, it's the 50th percentile. It's the criteria is the 50th percentile of, I think you're answering the wrong question.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50th percentile, but they've all been balanced and equated.
Yeah.
Okay, just a quick question for me. You mentioned being added and approved by NCII. Is that for K through high school or only specific grades?
For the screener, I think it's grades 2 through 8. For the progress monitoring, I think it's the same grades. For the intervention, it's K through 3 reading. And the only reason it starts at grade 2 on the screener is because we're normed against NWA MAP, and they don't test below grade 2. So that's and that's who we're normed against. So that's the test design is exactly the same at the lower grades. So, but we don't have any data to norm against anything at grades below that.
Thank you. So panel members, any other questions? Any further clarifying information?
I will say the Deal Center in Georgia just did a ranking of all the screeners that they'd approved, and they ranked them into 3 different groups, and we were ranked in the highest of the 3. They put them into 3 different groups, and we were lucky enough to be ranked in the top group. We were very pleased. So.
And this is an adaptive assessment.
It's a vertically scaled assessment. And
sorry?
It's a vertically scaled assessment, not an adaptive assessment. So it's a fixed form test that includes items from both above grade level and below grade level.
Anything further?
I'm just curious, nationally or in these two other states, what do you see in terms of identifying phonological awareness deficits if it's only recognition and not production? I'm assuming student doesn't have to produce any sounds, just recognize and manipulate.
I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know what you mean. What do we see?
Is there an under identification of phonemic awareness deficits because students are simply recognizing, hoping to match, get the right answer? Very few, I don't know, I hadn't found a screener yet that actually does that. And it's one of the concerns I have about online screening. Is that students don't actually have to produce anything. They just have to recognize.
I can't answer as far as, I mean, I can provide some insight. What we see in South Carolina is the fact that they're still in the adoption phase for science of reading. So their teachers are in the midst of completing letters training. So right now, what they're using us for is to say, okay, so phonemic awareness is, these are my kids here that are on the cusp, or bubble kids. They like that word, bubble kids. I want to make sure. And they're doing a lot of trust yet verify because, you know, like you just said, with online screening, even if there were a recording, you'd still have a teacher needing to listen to it in order to do it. But the other piece I'll say is, you know, we are one assessment. And I think it's really important, and I love the fact in primary grades, teachers are so comfortable building a portfolio of their students' abilities and documenting how they're doing. We're proud to be a part of that portfolio, but we'll never, I mean, one tool can't be everything to everybody, but I do think it helps to identify for teachers who and how might I group them in order to meet their needs or to double check, like you just said, production.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further? So panel members, do you want to make a decision today or do you want to table this?
So I'll make a motion. I make a motion not to add classwork to the approved screener list. There are some data pieces that are critical to K3, early literacy specific, when you're looking at the content criteria, that are still a little unclear, in addition to the data that is not present for one of the most, when you're looking at oral reading fluency, which has a really high correlation to reading comprehension, and that's what we want our students to do. There is no data, and those have not been normed. So I move to make a motion not to approve classwork at this time.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second. Angela Rutherford.
Is there any further discussion after a motion and a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So let me thank ClassWorks for being on here today. I think y'all have some really good things going. I think there's some gaps there for us at the moment I don't want to discourage you for applying in the future. I think once you get some more data on some of the things that you shared with us today, it would probably benefit you to come back. But I want to thank both of you for your time of being here today. So motion
So
carries.
can you tell us our steps to reapplying once we do have the data that you're looking for?
Kristen, I'm going to defer to you on timeline and such, because I know that we've got to look at our entire list.
So, yes, so with this, you as the vendor cannot apply. This would have to be an application based on something that's submitted, the application that's submitted by the district. So the application has to be submitted by the district, and I think the timeline for that is included in the screener application.
So a district has to, again, a district has to
correct.
request
So,
us. Okay.
So the district would have to request you again, and that district would have to apply, and then you would come back with, you know, additional things as Dr. Boone indicated, and we would review again.
And so we would just wait until we have the norming data that you're looking for fluency to work with the district to do that.
Well, additional norming data, and we'll send, you know, as a follow-up to this, some additional recommendations from the panel.
And then are you opening it up to the state again? Are you doing a larger for the whole state to do a reapplication at any time? Like to all vendors again? Do you have any timeline for that?
I'm going to defer to Dr. Boone because I think that's the next item on our agenda.
So the screener list that we have currently has been in place since 2014. So we're going to need to review that list. We're short a few members of our committee. So once we get appointments made by the House Education Chair and the new state superintendent, we have a full panel, and instead of just the 4 of us, then we will go ahead and start reviewing that list of screeners.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, ladies. We appreciate it.
Thank you for being here today. Okay, committee members, since there seems to be no other business for today, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Angela.
Second, Kelly.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you for your time. And as soon as we get further appointments, we'll be in touch and we'll have another meeting scheduled when there's 6 people on the committee rather than we 4.
Hey,
Thank y'all, and y'all have a great day.
I did.
Thanks,
Sorry,
everybody.